Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the G-Shock Watcher. My name is Matthew Hardman, and thank you so much for sharing some of your time with me today. On this episode, we're going to go do some Buyee auction hunting, and I decided this time around what I would do is look at a few watches from different price bands. So some are over $1,000, some are between $1,000 and $500, and a couple of ones are under $500. And the reason I chose some of these watches is because as I was browsing, they were kind of very interesting watches to go ahead and actually take a look at. There's some interesting history behind some of these watches as well, and they're just really fun to go ahead and actually take a look at. So before we get started, if this is your first time here or you've been here many times before, if you haven't liked and subscribed, I'd really appreciate that. So it drives me forward, helps pay some of the G-Shock bills, but really your support is absolutely fantastic, and thank you again for being here with me today. Okay, now before we get started, watch of the day is this particular watch. This is the GA700 MT-1A9. The MT is because it's a mixed tape edition, so you can sort of see the tape there on the actual watch itself. And there were some very cool watches that were released on this mixed tape series. I purchased this one. It's very cute. I like the bold colors on it. I have issues with it as well though, right? It was one of my earlier purchases of G-Shocks. This one has a negative display, which is a little bit hard to read. And the illumination, when you hit the illuminate button down the bottom here, very easy to go ahead and actually press. It doesn't do a fantastic job of illuminating the time or the display from that point of view. But it's an interesting watch. I thought I should actually go and rotate it and wear it. So that is the watch today, the mixtape edition, the GA7100 MT-1A9. We're going to start with our category of watches that are below $500 Singapore. So I'm going on the Singapore dollar currency here, not necessarily a US currency. But what I found is 3 watches which have some aspect of uniqueness which I wanted to go and share with you. Now, I'm not recommending that you should buy or purchase these watches. None of these are recommendations. These are just interesting observations or interesting watches which I've found on Buyee as I browse through the auction site itself. So let's get started. The first watch itself is this one. It's a G-Steel watch. It's a GST W310BDD. Now, what is interesting for this watch, you'll see here in the title, is it has diamonds in it. Now, these diamonds you can see on the 9, 3, and the 12. From what I understand, based on the research provided by G Central and Shockbase, and I've got to thank G Central and Shockbase all the time, they do such incredible work. These diamonds are actually real diamonds. If we go down and have a look, the diamonds on these 4 models are genuine natural diamonds. Now, of course, diamond cost varies based on quality. So I can't imagine that the diamonds on this watch are super high end. They're not going to be the diamonds you would see in a Cartier watch or a piece of jewelry. They're just diamonds that they were able to go and get a hold of. But I'm sure they're probably not cheap either. It was an interesting design choice to come out for G-Shock to be able to celebrate this. So as part of the Precious Heart collection in 2018, and we can see on these watches the diamonds being embedded across the different the models as well. So the watch itself being a G-Steel, it has multi-band 6, it has tough solar, it has water resistance. It's just an interesting watch. And you can sort of see the way they've cut the glass on the actual watch itself to have that sort of diamond look about it, as well as the individual diamonds. Now, the price of this watch when it came out was 52,000 yen. Today in the auction, it's at 24,000 yen. So the price has come down. The quality of the watch, it looks pretty good. It doesn't look too damaged. It's old, obviously. But if you wanted to pick up something that was unique, that you could say, hey, my G-Shock has diamonds in it, this wouldn't necessarily be a bad watch to go and put into your collection from that angle. So a diamond G-Shock. Next watch is this particular one, which is a Captain Santa watch. Now, I had not heard of Captain Santa before. Captain Santa in Japan is part of a fashion brand. It's a bit of a fashion icon. Now, of course, as I went through and did the research on this one, trying to understand who Captain Santa actually was, it doesn't necessarily say it's related to any sort of historical figure or anything like that at this point in time. But there was a Captain Santa in the US, and this person actually used to sail a ship up and down the coast and would give pine trees as Christmas trees to poor families until the ship actually sank, which was kind of sad. Now, that person was called Captain Santa, but there's nothing which kind of links together the Captain Santa fashion brand and the Captain Santa persona in the US. But it is a very, very popular fashion brand that Japan actually has. And it's a whole lot of sort of fashion streetwear that people have around Captain Santa, Santa doing different things. From what I understand from Joymark Design, which owns this particular brand, they actually say that it's about a celebration of all things US and of the ocean, those sorts of things. So it's kind of cute. The watch itself is a G100. So from a technology point of view, it doesn't pack a lot of features. It does have a nice design. What you will see is that the analog and digital combination of this watch itself, it has that old school sort of italic or at least sort of angled digital display, which I think is nice. And then it's got the analog on top of it. And underneath the analog is, of course, the Captain Santa brand itself. This watch is going for $276. It's fairly unique as well, just like the diamond one, the Captain Santa Sports Club. I'm not actually sure really how popular Captain Santa would actually be outside of the US, but again, it's an interesting watch all the same. The last watch in this category of under $500, and this just squeezes in under the $500, is this particular watch, which is the Love to Sea and Earth Cassowary Rangeman. Now, I've always been a big fan of Rangeman. I've got a couple of Rangeman. I'd love to have more Rangemans. And this one in particular is one I've always been a super fan of. I just love the colors of this watch. You've got this striking blue. The actual compass here itself is a nicer dark color. You've got all of the features, triple sensor, multi-band 6, tough solar. It's a fantastic watch. And as we look around the watch itself, you can see some beautiful colors here. This bold red on the main button. We've got blues on the button. If we look at the bands themselves, you have this nice sort of accent of colors. You've got the gold on the clasp. It's a spectacular design. And of course, it's got the Love the Sea and Earth on the actual back of it as well. Now, what's fascinating about this watch, I mean, apart from the great looking colors, it's a great watch. It is based around the cassowary. Now, if you've never heard of a cassowary before, a cassowary is one of the flightless birds. So it's kind of like an emu, like an ostrich, but it's smaller than the emu. So you've kind of got the ostrich, I believe, is the biggest one. Then you've got the emu. The cassowary is a little bit smaller than the emu. But I will tell you, it's an absolutely terrifying bird. I used to live in Papua New Guinea, and that is a region where the cassowary is quite famous to have lived. Now, if you look at this particular bird and then look back at the watch, this is the main sort of cassowary I sort of grew up with, or at least was in the areas I actually lived in. And you can see the colors, right? The bold sort of dark blue, the light blue, the red. If we go back and look at the watch, there's your red, there's your light blue, there's the blue itself. It's a fantastic representation to, I guess, immortalize the cassowary in terms of a G-Shock watch. Like, they've really done a fantastic job on this particular watch. And I will tell you, this bird is tough as nails, just like the Rangeman should be as well. You know, if you look at that head going back to it, that huge bone on top of its head. And as I was growing up, I was told that a cassowary could run at you and just hit you with that bone. I don't know if it would impale you, but you'd be certainly in a hell of a lot of pain when that thing hits you. But what else is terrifying about it is the actual feet of this bird. Now, I'm just trying to find a picture. Here we go. Look at the feet on this bird. Not only does it have this massive middle toe, but look at the size of the claw on the inner toes. And these birds themselves, they're not unheard of to attack people or animals or dogs and things like that. They're a little bit reclusive. You find them deeper in the forest. They're not necessarily going to be walking the streets, but they're certainly not a bird you want to go and tangle with. So when you look at that cassowary-inspired G-Shock watch and look at the actual bird itself, you can see how well they've done in this particular design. So very, very cool watch. Really nice one to sort of own. One day, hopefully, I'll work out a way to be able to get my hands on this watch as well. Now we move into the watches that are between $500 Sing and $1,000 Sing. This one watch I thought was an interesting watch because of its intersection between G-Shock, corporations, and graphic artists. The watch I'm talking about here is the GA140AR OG Slick Collaboration G-Shock Casio Mickey Palm watch. I'm sure it's not the name of the actual watch itself, but more a description of what the watch is. This watch is a unique watch for its design elements on the watch itself and some of the things that it actually does. Now, let's first look at the watch and just get around what it is. It's a GA140AR, a very striking watch, black and red. I would say that it's probably got too many complications on the watch itself. Like, it's a very, very busy watch. There's lots of things going on. There's dates up the top, there's seconds at the bottom, there's days, there's lots of things going on around the watch itself. So if you're looking for a very, very busy watch, this could be the one. If you want it to be a very striking and busy watch, this is definitely the watch you want to look for. It is part of the Adrenaline Red collection. So you can see all of these watches have that same design. Lots of black on the actual resin band, but then lots of red on the face itself. Now, when we go look at our Disney watch here, what you're seeing here is this watch is branded to go with this Disney hand. And I'll talk a little bit about the Disney hand itself. If we go look at the watch, it's all the same except it has the OG Slick branding on the resin. So there we've got the OG, and then we go over here to the other side here, which I don't know if it says Slick. Maybe it says Slick, S-L-I-C-K. Definitely there from that angle. And then on the back of the watch itself, it's got his signature on the backplate. Now, Slick is a designer who basically does a whole lot of work around corporations, around streetwear, around artwork, lots of different things. And he has a very large portfolio of work he's done. I thought this was interesting because there was the Microsoft Zune one. I used to own a Microsoft Zune. I used to love my Microsoft Zune, but it doesn't exist anymore. But he's done things for video games. He's done things for cars, so the Ford Flex. He's done some designs around that. He's also done some things around Gears of War, Adidas, MTV. The gentleman is obviously very, very busy in terms of the artworks and the design he does. Now, this hand, the one we're talking about back here on the actual watch itself, the Mickey Palm watch, this actually comes from this section here where he did this LA Hands collection. And what you see is all of those Mickey gloves that have been designed there with different artwork, different designs, different colors. It became a very, very popular exhibition. What is eerie about it is this sort of look. It's as if they've cut Mickey's hand off, and you can sort of see the blood, the flesh, the bone still stuck in the in the actual glove, which is kind of eerie from that point of view. And I'm surprised that Disney let them do that, or maybe there was an ongoing thing. I don't know the history there, but interesting sort of look. And if we go and look at the Casio G-Shock, right, it has the similar hand thing here. So we can actually see the watch on the actual arm, and instead of the blood and bone, we've got the Casio G-Shock logo and OG Slick on the glove itself. So it's an interesting watch to say the least. Not necessarily for the watch, but maybe more the presentation of the watch using this Mickey hand or Mickey palm view of the watch itself. Now, the one thing I would say about this, if you suddenly went, oh my God, I need to have this, this watch kit or this watch sale has been around for a little bit of time, right? If I look at what's on Buyee and look at this particular image here where it's for sale, I went to eBay and the exact same thing was there as well. And this was July 20. This particular one is around about well, just recently. So, you want to be careful sometimes about these secondhand things. It's being sold in multiple locations, so I'm not sure how real it actually is. I tend to believe that Buyee would be legit, but if you were going for this watch, just make sure you watch it from that angle. Watch that watch. Now, our final section is really the watches which are above $1,000 Sing, and I've got a really interesting one to talk about. It's like the last section, I said one watch. I want us to do one watch in this section, and we're not talking about an MRG. We're not even talking about an MTG. What we are talking about is a GW M5610MD watch, which is not necessarily expensive. So why is it in the $1,000 category? Well, this watch itself is actually going for $2,750 Sing. So much more expensive than just $1,000. We're really quite up into it here. But this watch has some interesting history. The watch itself, the actual watch, is this one here, the GW M5610MD. Water resistance of 200 meters, multi-band 6, and tough solar. So it's a nice watch. I don't necessarily like the negative display so much, but it's still a nice watch all the same. So why is a watch that typically costs $23,000 yen going for a buyout price of nearly $300,000 yen? Well, the history behind this watch is it is extremely limited, and it was built in celebration of the transition of the previous emperor of Japan to the current emperor of Japan. Now, what I'm going to do here is show you from a website called Ice Cream. What they do is they've gone through and featured what this watch actually is. It's a promotion that colors the end of Heisei. G-Shock presents a limited number of 10 Reiwa models. Now, I'll talk about what Heisei and Reiwa actually is in a second, and I'm probably butchering those names, but the reason why these watches actually exist is because it's a transition from Heisei to Reiwa. Now, these watches, there were only 10 made, right? So if we come down here, where is it? During the period until April 30th, 10 people who follow and post their favorite photos will be selected by lottery, and they will get the watch. And these are the two watches themselves. So there's only, and I think it says here on the site, there's only 5 of these watches. So there's 5 whites and there's 5 blacks. And so these watches are in celebration of this. And so you can sort of see here the go with 31-0. This is a translation. If I turn off the translation and go back to the original, it's not going to mean too much to anybody here, but the translation of this is really about enabling people to, it's enabling me to read it, but this promotion is about the transition of power from Heisei to Reiwa. And there were only 10 of these watches, and there were 5 blacks and there were 5 whites. So they are ultra limited from that angle. So you can see why someone's trying to say, hey, maybe I can go ahead and actually sell this for $2,750, even though the original watch itself is only about 23,000 yen. So it's a 10x and then some increase on the actual price of the watch. So what is this transition of Heisei to Reiwa? Well, the Heisei era in Japan was the era for Emperor Akihito in Japan. So from January 1989, from here until his abdication on April 2019. So he was in as the emperor for, let's see, that's 30 years, 89 to 2019. So I'm guessing it's 30 years is how long he was actually in there for. Now, Emperor Akihito, he actually asked to abdicate from his role as the emperor. And normally that doesn't necessarily happen, because normally what happens is you would stay emperor until you die, but he wanted to be able to abdicate. And the reason he wanted to abdicate was because of health issues. He had health issues around, I think his lungs, heart surgery and prostate cancer. So the guy that's a tough thing to actually go through, and then be able to serve out your duties as emperor, serving the people and all those different things. And so he spoke to the parliament and managed to be able to get them to accept that he could abdicate the emperor position to his son. So the era that he actually was involved in, or what they called that era, was called the Heisei era. And the Heisei era is a period of, looking for it here, Heisei. Trying to find, there's a meaning to it. Heisei era. Peace everywhere. So there's Heisei is intended to mean peace everywhere. So at each of these different emperors, there is a different era that's actually there. So when he abdicated, they went from the Heisei era, they went into the Reiwa era. And the Reiwa area is called Beautiful Harmony. And so the Reiwa area is the current emperor, Emperor Naruhito, is the emperor of this particular period. So these watches, these super rare watches, this is in celebration. There's only 5 of these watches available today, and they're in celebration of the transition of the Heisei area to the Reiwa area. So interesting that people get these watches and they want to be able to go and resell them on the marketplace. But again, it's just a GW M5610MD, but the history of that watch is really, really interesting about the transition of power between the 2 emperors in Japan from that angle. Anyway, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Those were some interesting watches that I've found on the Buyee website, some interesting history. We saw some diamond watches, we saw Captain Santa watches, we saw Mickey hand watches, and we saw Emperor transition watches. And of course, my favorite one there was the Cassowary Rangeman watch. So again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for spending some time with me just to look at some watches and explain some of the history. Super interesting to me. I hope it was interesting to you. Have a lovely day and be safe. Thank you.